Hello, hello.
How's it going, man? Nice to meet you.
Likewise, likewise. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for the invite.
Well, thank you for carving out the time to join me here today on this podcast recording. So, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Good. Is it Louis or Luis?
It's yes. Well, it's Luis, right? But the
Okay.
whole
All
thing
right.
is that I'm not too PC about people who call me Louis. I grew up in the 80s and in South Florida. Not everyone could say Luis. So I just adapted to it. Just don't call me, something negative and we'll be okay.
So I want to make sure I get it right, man.
Yeah, but I'm also doing it myself, so I'm doing it more consciously because personally, like my brain would switch off. Like in English, I would just even call myself Luis, and then in Spanish, it will automatically go to Luis. So it was like how my mind would compartmentalize it, and now I'm trying to make more of an effort to actually say it like in English as Luis because that is my name.
You got it, man. So what do
Well,
you want to talk about? How long do you want to go for? That sort of stuff.
Well, this is the podcast and it's a completely different style. It's just like laid back. So it's CITYSGAW, which is actually a spin-off of a segment that I have on my live stream, which is channels that I think you should go and watch or creators that I think you should go and watch. And you were someone that I have already segmented or put into that section of my live streams. So for that reason, now I'm reaching out to the same people who I've, highlighted and having them on the podcast that now it's its own thing.
That's awesome. Well, I
Yes.
appreciate all your support over the years. So I was like, I'm definitely want to help you out.
Yeah, I was just catching your live stream yesterday, and seeing that you were implementing Ecamm a little bit better. So that was like a lot of fun to see you do.
Yeah, I've been using it for a while. I don't know much about it. I just like know how to get up and running. I set up a few scenes. Um, like Doc Rock has been pushing me that way for a while, and so I was like, all right, dude, we'll get going. And I just been yeah, as long as it works well, I get the comments up on the screen. Like I'm pretty happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's kind of the idea, right? And that's kind of the idea that I'm doing with the podcast as well, which is basically having it a lot more laid back because even though, like yourself, there are many creators that I actually follow, I want to get to know them just a little bit better, like a little bit more behind the scenes and not so much all about their content, but about the creator themselves. So
Okay.
that's what I'm here to do, to get to know you a little bit better, more of like the behind the scenes. Now, some people might not know who you are. So just a quick bio that this is Josh Sattin. And I am saying that correct as well, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I like the material.
Yep. And he actually started, I believe, with a farming channel that has grown very lucratively. And the
Okay.
whole thing
Hold,
is that
hold up. Have we started this whole thing? I didn't even know if we were like. Are
yeah,
we live? Oh, are
this
we?
is the podcast.
Oh,
This
sorry,
is a
man.
whole new setup. No apologies, because
Uh,
that's exactly why. Like, I
okay. Okay.
want the listeners to experience it the way that I would, as far as getting to know you.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Because
No
a
worries.
lot of times people try to like they're different when they're just having this type of conversation than when they're all formal about like we're gonna shoot a podcast,
Oh
and
no,
I'm a victim of it myself.
I'm the same person no matter what we're doing. I've been doing this too long. I also, I taught high school for 5 years, a couple careers ago. So the person you see in my videos and you see on my live streams, and like that's me. It's just I'll just cut out the outtakes, but I'm just the same. I talk the same way, like I do the same thing. You know what I mean?
And that's
Okay.
why I love live streams, because the live streams really allow you to see more of that of the individual than just the completely hyper edited stuff. So I had mentioned it in a previous recording, which is like when we used to have television with programming, and not everything's on demand, where you could watch a movie and you missed the first 15 minutes of it, but then you still watch the whole thing because you were wrapped up into it. I kind of want to have that vibe with the podcast where it just starts, because the same way that I'm getting to know you and other creators, then I'll be letting the listeners have that type of experience.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so like I want to get to know you and other creators more of like the behind the scenes. So I guess my first question would be like, as a youngster, right? As a youth, like what was the thing that maybe you think got you into this type of like, like curiosity as a creator, not so much as, something in particular, but what got you into the creative space as a child?
I don't think I was creative as a child. So this for me was a long journey through, like we were just talking about, multiple careers. I had started, I was into math and science as a kid. So I went to engineering school. I have a degree in electrical engineering. I got my master's in mathematics. I've done a lot of school. I went and taught high school for 5 years. I was very like into tech and science and all that kind of stuff, and math, of course. And it's just been a progression. So after I left teaching, I became a brewer. I brewed beer professionally for like 5 or 6 years.
Nice.
So you'll see a pattern here that I kind of change things up every 5 years because I'm just a very curious person. I'm very nerdy. I like to learn. I never turn off learning. Like it's always going. After I left the beer industry, which that's like a whole nother discussion, I got into farming by accident. The house that we live in now, I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we live on 2 acres. I grew up in Boston, very urban environment, streetcars, like city, real urban. And when we moved here, I was like, I want to live a little more sustainably with the kids and stuff and grow some food. And it just got out of control because I just go like all in with everything I do. So I started the farm, and I was trying to market the farm, and I was starting on Instagram, and I started making these like back then there was no like long form on Instagram. It was like 59 seconds. So I was trying to make these like educational videos to help people grow food and stuff. And then it turned into YouTube. The YouTube channel blew up very, very quickly. So I had a viral video 2 months in. I had pretty much zero video experience. So I was started with my cell phone. I bought like a tripod off Amazon and like a Rode Video Micro, like $50 microphone, editing on my phone. I put out a bunch of videos. People were digging the content because it was like good information. And then after I bought a camera. I think my viral video that I made was actually randomly the first video that I did with that camera. But anyways, if you go watch it, like the audio level is super low. Like I didn't know what I was doing and all that stuff. So basically, like as I got into that channel and that channel blew up, I mean, I got to 100,000 subscribers in about 13 months from zero, like never done YouTube before, which is
Nice.
crazy. And so in that process, I started like, how do I make the video better? Like I wanted better cameras. I wanted to learn how to edit better. I wanted to be able to tell stories better, color grade, like all that stuff. And after a bunch of years of farming, I also left my farm to run a nonprofit urban farm for a year. We rebuilt it. That was a crazy year. It was 2020 as well. So it was there was a lot going on. But in that time period, I was constantly putting out content on YouTube, practicing my filmmaking, content creation, and just nerding out on cameras. And I was constantly switching cameras because I'm like, oh, I want to try this. I want to try this. I want to try this. And then I'd started the camera channel, which most people watching this probably know me for, is that it came out of just the fact that I couldn't stop trying all these cameras and testing them. And I actually started this channel and then put it on pause for a while because I was doing other stuff and I didn't like my approach, and then restarted it. And then when I started to quit farming in 2022, I went all in with video. So not just for my channel, but also doing freelance work as well. So I just sort of embraced it, and the channel and the style, like my nerdy background and technical analysis, that all came from just what I was doing anyways. And I was like, I might as well make videos about this because sometimes, and I'm sure you feel this way too, Luis, was that a lot of times you look for information and it's not there. And so something specific. And so like a lot of times with me is like, I'm curious about how something works and I go online and I can't find the information. So I'll do all the research and then make a tutorial about it, or do all the research and then do a review about it or whatever. So that's kind of how that channel started, but I've done a lot of different stuff. And I don't know if I have another 5-year cycle ending soon. I feel like I'm going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah, this is a whole lot of fun because I fell in kind of the same way, which was I was doing phone repair and I wanted to get better video to show what I was doing, and that rekindled my passion for video and photography, which have inevitably landed me here having conversations like this with you. So that's really cool. That's really good to know. Now, Going back to what you were saying, and touching back on your brewing experience, right? What is your favorite type of brew after having that experience?
It's really interesting because about halfway through my time as a professional brewer, I mean, I don't drink as much as I used to nowadays, but as I get older, I'm not really into it as much as I was when I was younger. But I started actually brewing beer when I was a teenager. My parents somehow thought that was like a cool little hobby for me, so I got into it a long time ago, and then
Wow.
picked up home brewing again. When was this? Probably in my like mid 20s. And then after I left teaching, I was like, maybe I should get a job in this. I really love this stuff. Again, like turning hobbies kind of into my career. So my favorite kind of beer has changed over time. Obviously, also I went through a period of like learning about all the styles and learning how to make all the styles and really getting serious about it as it was my craft and my profession. But at some point, when you think about beer all day long, every day, when you're working on it, you're making it, you're trying to like physically like sweating and lugging stuff around in breweries and all that stuff, you kind of don't want to think about beer at the end of the day. You kind of just want something that's easy to drink, that's cold and crisp. And so I just made a shift at one point. I was like, you know what? I kind of just really like light beer, like light lagers. I started drinking a lot of like domestic, like inexpensive beer. My favorite style is a lot of the German beers, like Pilsners,
Nice.
Helles, like the light lagers that are made in Germany. And in my opinion, they're the hardest beers to make because they're so simple. So, and on top of that, it's like, not only are they like easy to drink, but they're also, I mean, think about it this way. When you have a beer that's very simple, you can taste all the flaws in the beer. And so like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people will hate on beers like Budweiser, Miller, Coors. But if there's any faults in the brewing process, they come flying through because there isn't a lot of flavor to hide those behind. So you have to give a lot of credit to some of those guys, those big companies, because the beers always are clean and consistent. So I don't know.
Wow, that's such a cool aspect to think about it because it makes sense, right? When it comes to like cooking, right? It's harder to work with less ingredients. And, when you have somebody who can make a steak with just salt and pepper and it be the best thing that you tasted in your life, then at that moment you recognize the skill. And it shows that you came full circle from like understanding the process, right? And seeing like how at the end of the day you respect the simplicity of something as basic as like a light domestic beer.
Absolutely.
That's
Same thing.
really cool.
Yeah, I got really into bread making, and I make pizza all the time, and all that kind of stuff. And same thing with bread making is I found that like baguette, which was one of the hardest breads to learn how to make because it's only four ingredients, but it's all skill, it's all technique, and so a lot of that stuff, like you said, like make a steak with just salt and pepper. So I find that's true with a lot of stuff, like especially with cooking. I don't know if you like to cook, Luis, but like
Yeah.
usually the more simple the recipe is, to me, I always think it tastes better. That's just
Mhm.
my personal like experience and stuff. So yeah.
Dude, my mind was just poisoned over the weekend in Atlanta where we stopped at this barbecue joint and it wasn't so much the barbecue, it was the side dishes and it was my first time experiencing a Frito pie. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I have not.
They basically open up a bag of Fritos and dump some chili, some cheese, onions, and a spoon. And it's so simple, yet it is phenomenal. It is
That's
like
awesome.
so cool. So I definitely respect all of that. And it's so cool to know that because the way that what I'm learning here is like the way that you look at everything is also the way that you've looked at the photography aspect or the cameras, because I love nerding out about that just the same. And on top of the skills learned in photography and video, I really started nerding out on the electronics because me coming from a field of like repairing electronics, knowing how the cameras and stuff worked on the inside really got me going. And that's kind of where I started with this as well. So that's super cool, man. Like to think about that. And once again, going back to it, that the simplicity, right, is what you respect, because that's also like one of my mottos is upgrade your skills before your gear,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that nowadays we can pretty much get high quality video out of pretty much anything, including our phones. So once you have the skill to know the look and the shot and the lighting that you want, that's going to lead you 90% of the way that you want to go compared to the equipment that you're going to buy and not really know how to use as soon as you get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. And I think that man, I could talk about this for a long time, but people get into it and they see, and myself included, when I was getting started, I see the people I watched online. I need that camera because that's why it looks like. No, it's not why it looks like that. I mean, yes, those things
Mm-hmm.
can improve your quality, but a lot of times nowadays, people jump into the first time they buy a camera and they're like, "I'm gonna go buy an FX3," and I'm just like, "Okay, you've never shot a video before, but you're gonna drop $4,000 on a camera body." Like, good for them if they can afford it, because like the ceiling is much higher for the quality, but like you said, you can get away with much less than you think you can, especially if you're not in the camera space. That's like a whole nother world. Like if you're making
Yes.
videos for you if you're making
I felt that one. You could tell, right?
yeah, if I make a video and like something's off, they're like, I can't believe it's out of focus or the color's wrong or your exposure, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. So but that also makes sense because we're talking about cameras, so your quality should be good. Like we are the people that are supposed to be the experts in the field. Like
Mm-hmm.
if his video looks like crap, why should I trust this guy?
Yeah, it's visual credibility. It's as soon as they see you and you present yourself correctly, they don't have to ask. They can just see and they're like, wow, this quality is next level. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. And then when they find out that you're doing it all by yourself and this is like a one man production solo type deal, then it even takes that like credibility to the next level, I think.
Yeah, but I've started to come to the realization over the last few years that I'm at the point with my skill set. I'm not saying I know everything. Like I'm learning all the time and I'm always trying to improve. But a lot of the times I can kind of get most cameras to do what I want them to do. And so, like, I'm constantly rotating cameras. If anyone's seen my channel before, I'm always trading cameras, borrowing cameras, like whatever I can do. And like, even here in my studio, I'll swap out my camera and someone goes, "Oh, you did?" And that's because I can make it look how I want it to look.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at some point, there's like a quality threshold that you're good with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the point of diminishing returns, which is you get to a point where I call it GE quality. It's definitely good enough, and most people aren't even, and this is us speaking in the camera space. I just did a live stream from a hotel room in Atlanta. And the funny thing is that I had multiple angles. Okay, so I have like a behind the scenes shot. Everything's high quality. And I'm in a hotel room in Atlanta, completely like thousands of miles away from my home. And that's what it just let me realize like that's definitely good enough. If I try to like 1% that, it's really like the juice is not worth the squeeze. And that's when the term, done is better than perfect really falls into play.
Yeah, there's also the part of it where we're doing it for ourselves. I don't know if you have that too,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of times, yeah, the audience might not notice that 1 or 3% difference, but we're trying to learn. We're trying to eke out little things. We're trying to like dial in that little bit. And, also, I don't know about you, Luis, but like a lot of times I'm editing and I have a
I
Mac
was just
Studio
gonna go there.
when I have a studio display, right? And so I'm like this far from the screen and it's in 4K and like I'm nitpicking and then you put it up on YouTube and someone's going to watch on their phone anyways. But like for me, I enjoy the experience so much with shooting and editing and color grading that those differences make me happy when I'm working, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and that's the nerding out aspect, right? I spend hours on a particular frame to get it exactly how I want it, and nobody notices. It's only for me. You
I know.
understand? And if I were to left it, hypothetically messed up, then the same way nobody would have noticed except me, right? So it's kind of hard to draw that line because I have a lot of fun in that editing process. And that's where I was just going to bring it because that's where I see it happen the most. Where in the editing process, I could really spend too much time on something that kind of really doesn't matter, but I'm having a blast while I do it. And when I look up, 8 hours have passed, which is where you really have to kind of like, I guess, pace yourself, right? Bring in the reins and just know that once again, done is better than perfect.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of ways you can spend a lot of time doing this stuff, and I've really forced myself. I shouldn't say forced myself. Part of what I do is I really think about efficiency, and it's been in everything in my life from all the different careers that I've done with brewing and farming and content creation. I really try to eliminate friction in my workflow, and I have like every in my studio here, everything is set up. Like I do not like if I have a client shoot or some other project I'm working on, or I need gear for testing, all this stuff doesn't move. Like this is all set. So I can come in ready to go if I need to record a talking head video or do a live stream. I've invested a lot in computer equipment and just to get things done quickly, because what I realized being a content creator, especially when I was doing the farming videos, I was putting out 2 videos a week for 3 years. And I was also working as a farmer. So I wasn't full-time content creation. I was like 50-50. And to me, I needed to like push out content as quickly as I can, as I could. I also, I don't talk about this very often, but in 2020, this is like right after COVID started, I actually went daily for a month on YouTube.
Really?
And yeah, I wanted to do it for a few reasons. One is, I don't know if you remember, but like right after COVID hit, YouTube went dead. No one knew what to talk about. No one knew like, should I make content on this camera or this thing? Like what's acceptable right now? Should we be doing? I was like, I'm just going to make a video every day. I'm going to be here for everybody. And it was such a cool experience to connect with the audience. Everyone was like, man, every morning I wake up, there's a video to watch from you. And I'm like, that's crazy. But in that process, I learned so much about technique and workflow and efficiency and thinking, like planning videos out. And once I came out of that, and this was what, 4 years ago now, I just like that changed the way I did content creation moving forwards for sure. I wouldn't recommend going daily for a month though. It was like insane.
I can imagine, and that's with editing daily
Yeah, yeah.
because
And I was
I
working.
did. Oh man, like I did 30 days of live streaming, and that kind of kick-started me going. And that's the one thing, which is like this, the podcasts and my live streams, you don't edit. So because of it, it's allowed me to create more content instead of me being hyper focused on spending 8 hours on 3 frames that nobody's going to notice. So that's where I really like enjoy both, I guess, the differences, right? Because with the live streams, it allows me to just get content out, sort of in that same mindset of like done is better than perfect. But it also allows me to really indulge in my edits and give me the time to enjoy what I do with them as well.
Do you find, Luis, that, and this is just me asking you a question because I do live stream. I've been live streaming once a week for, I don't know now, maybe 9 months. I don't know. I don't remember when I started, but it's
It's
been a
been a while.
while.
I
Yeah.
catch as many as I can.
I appreciate you come by. It's really cool to have the support. And I just think that as a person who's done a lot of YouTube, and I'm always thinking about the analytics and the impact of the content that we create and how it affects our channel growth and stuff like that. I find that though, when I do a live stream versus if I do a recorded video, the recorded video is going to pull in a lot more views. And so I
Oh,
often
absolutely.
am very hesitant to do live streams that are on specific topics or things. I'd rather spend a little bit more time making a dedicated video. So for example, like when a new camera gets released, the easiest thing is just go live. Like we can just go live, we can talk about it, people hang out, ask questions, but I'm not going to get the same revenue. I'm not going to get the same number of new subscribers. It doesn't get pushed the same way. So I sort of struggle with that. But I do enjoy live streaming, and I don't think there's a lot of us in the community that are doing it regularly. And I think a lot of people do hide behind edits, do hide behind, which is what you're talking about sort of at the beginning of this discussion, and you don't get to really see them and interact with them. Like I'm here, well, on the internet, available to take questions and accept comments and
Mhm.
criticism for 2 hours a week. Like if you want me, I'm here. And I think that accessibility to your audience is invaluable. Like I've built so many cool relationships with people, and people know they can come ask questions. And there's also
That's
like
a
a lot of,
difference.
yeah. And I also think there's a sort of, it's hard to judge the impact of that, because a lot of those people might then use your affiliate links and you might make making more money, even though you don't have the views that you get from other things. You're building that community and those relationships. So it's been cool. I'm trying to keep it up because I have some good conversations with people, and not everyone's available. You know what I mean? Like how many people have
Hmm.
you reached out to in the past? They don't answer a DM. They don't answer a comment. You know what I mean? So I do try to be as available as possible.
Yeah, me too. And it's tough to be like omnipresent, so to speak, on all these different social media platforms when a new one pops up almost daily. And now it's like a whole new thing that they're trying to do, right? So what I've realized is that I've focused my energies in the platform where I prefer the most, which happens to be YouTube. So
Me
that's where
too.
I spend most of my time, and I let everything else just happen naturally. Like I don't try to force anything. I do agree with you when it comes to the videos and how they perform. All pre-recorded content is just going to do better than the live streams, and I'm not sure that that will always be that way, but there's a difference that I've noticed between the live stream content and the pre-recorded content, which is the word that you mentioned, community, right? The pre-recorded content will get you an audience. Live streaming builds a community.
Love it.
and
Love it.
that's and that's where the difference is. There's a disconnect where, like, I feel that all of your pre-recorded content is kind of like a resume, right? You've polished out all the errors and people are seeing the best version of you frame by frame. When you do it live, people are getting to see you for who you are and recognize, like you mentioned before, that you are the same exact person in your videos that you are on the street. And I think that that's been the the best part of the live streaming aspect for me, that when I've gotten to meet individuals at conferences and things like that, that people are instantly able to say, man, you are the same exact person that I've been watching week after week on your live streams. And that to me is like, it means the most.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it was interesting because with the farming channel, it was a much larger size, right? Like that's a
Mhm.
lot more people. I mean, I have a few videos that have millions of views and, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And when I was doing all this content, I was recording it like in my backyard, right? Like on my property, like my little tiny farm. And I never let people come by to visit or because it's my family, right? You guys can't like hang out here. Then when I went to go do the nonprofit farm, it was public, it was open, everyone could see where it was, and people came by like regularly to say hello and meet me. And it's interesting when you have that sort of people know who you are, you don't know who they are. That's like a whole other thing to talk about. But a
Mhm.
lot of people, I'd start talking to them, and I try to give everyone time. You know what I mean? Even if I was busy, and they'd say like, "Hey, you are the same guy that you are." I'm like, "Of course I am. What do you like?" You expect me to be like completely different in person, but I hear you. Not everyone's like that.
Yeah, but I think that's the power of YouTube, right? Where you're really putting the you in the tube. And even I'm just saying, by our age demographic, right? We were kind of, I guess the word would be like accustomed, right, to knowing celebrities on television and seeing that they were a completely different persona when you would get to meet them on the street. A lot, I've heard so many stories of people being not too pleasant, right, to the same devoted audience that they've, fostered for years. And when they meet them in person, be like, that person was a jerk. That person was an a-hole, so to speak, right?
Right, right.
And with the YouTube, I've noticed that there are certain cases that has come about, whether it be their own like antisocial tendencies, but majorly the person that you're seeing on screen is the person that you're gonna find out on the street. And
I'll I'll piggyback to that. Is I think that the majority of YouTubers that I've gotten to know or just met in general, like at conferences or whatever, they're way more introverted than you think they are. I find that most YouTubers that I've gotten to know are introverts. And so I'm kind of in the middle, right? Like I can go both ways. And my wife is very introverted. So, I understand that part of it as well. And you don't realize it, but a lot of the people you watch, like when they're out in public, they're quiet and they don't love doing it. But when they're home or in their world, they can make videos and talk to the camera, and that's their way of doing that. I found it so fascinating to learn that all these YouTubers were introverts. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I don't know if you've experienced that too.
well, I guess I haven't. And
Okay.
then that could be a completely different thing, of that the people that I've met have been more on the online or the
extroverts.
The live stream community. No, the live stream community. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
getting to see
Okay.
them more as they are. And then also the other thing that I was going to say to that is that I also feel that it depends on the people who you're with, right? So that goes back to the community and audience. When it's just an audience, you don't know who's watching on the other end. So it gives them that barrier to be more introverted, as like, I don't know who you are. And that really creates the gap between that parasocial relationship that they have between themselves and the audience. With the live stream community, or also the Ecamm fam, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people that I've been able to meet, they're more into live stream. So I've recognized that there's already a relationship built there. So when we meet for the first time, it's not as if we met for the first time. It is like, hey, I finally get to see you in person. And it's almost like hugs are there already, like it's like bring it in. And it's like a family reunion more than meeting someone for the first time and them trying to put a face to a name. It's already there. So that's what I've noticed. And I think that you also become extroverted with the right type of people. So when you find the people who, vibe with you, and you
Mm-hmm.
get to meet them in person when you've already established like a friendship online, it's a lot easier to fall into that like friendship zone of like, hey, let's just go grab a beer and have a chat, than it is when you're meeting someone for the first time ever. Are you still using the same old black boring mic cover? It's time for an upgrade. Introducing Doc Pops, the microphone covers that don't just improve your sound, they make a statement. Designed for podcasters, streamers, musicians, and content creators, Doc Pops reduces plosives, cuts down on background noises, and protects your microphone from dust and moisture, all while looking amazing on camera. With a variety of colors to match your style, your microphone will finally stand out as much as your content. Perfect for top mics like the Shure SM7B, MV7, Rode Pod mic, and many more. So make your mic pop with Doc Pops. Better sound, better look, bigger impact. Doc Pops, where sound meets style. Is that velvet?
This year going to NAB was really, I've been to NAB the last 2 years.
Nice.
And this year was fascinating to me because I got recognized a lot more than I did the first year. And I wasn't weirded out by it because, like I said, the whole thing with the other channel and like having those interactions. But yeah, it was really cool. People came, like some people were so excited to talk to me. I was like, dude, yeah, it's awesome. I'm glad to meet you. Like this is super cool that it's not just an internet thing, because I think a lot of us forget that as content creators because we're sitting in our office, we're sitting in our studio, or we're out vlogging somewhere or whatever, and you put out videos and you get numb to the numbers and the analytics, and you forget, oh, I only got 3,000 views on this video, or I was hoping I get 20,000 views on this video. And you're like, 20,000 people sat there and clicked, I want to watch this.
Right?
We forget those. I get desensitized to those numbers all the time because this for me is my job right now. So I'm constantly trying to push those things. And, I think about, for example, like my channel, I think I'm at 34,000 subscribers right now as we're recording this.
Mm-hmm.
But like to think about my other channel has like 230 something thousand. And I'm just like about almost 250,000 people hit yes, subscribe to this guy's channel. That absolutely blows my mind. I don't take this stuff for granted. Every like milestone in subscribers and views and stuff, I kind of have to celebrate because it's still super cool.
Yep. Roberto Blake really gave me a good perspective on this, which is for creators who are just starting out before they amass these massive numbers, they're constantly trying to reach these metrics. And it's like, imagine if you had 1,000 people
Oh, I know.
in a conference room and that they were all waiting for you to speak. I think the last thing that you would do would be like, hey, you guys have to wait, run out into the hallway to ask for more people to join before you start speaking. Like it's really asinine to me when you think about it that way. And it's like, if you were to just focus on the audience, then I think it would not only serve your audience, but you as a creator a lot better. And that's what I've been able to do because I haven't reached any numbers like that, right? I'm not even in the, tens of thousands when it comes to my subscriber count on YouTube. Yet I was still able to experience somebody recognizing me, like at one of these conferences, like you said, NAB, and have one say, like, hey, you know what? Like the biggest one for me was a dude who flew in from Japan and was like, I watch your content. Thank you for this and that. And I'm
So
like,
cool.
Japan? Like, are you serious? So that to me is just what makes this second to none when it comes to the content creation space. And that's why I love doing what I do.
They recognize us because we got big beards. That's why.
I won't take that away from them, But this is the whole thing. The beard is a recognizable thing
100%.
because I used it for my previous business when I was repairing iPhones, and the same type of guerrilla marketing I did with my camera junkie YouTube channel. And I had people just start saying like, hey, aren't you the guy who fixes phones? And I'm like, yep, the one in the same, So I was able to be recognized. But even like that, to be recognized on the street when I was doing phone repairs, and then also being recognized at an event for my camera, content, it really just puts this amazing perspective. At least for me, it does, of like, wow, this is not just, it's not a waste of time, so to speak, how some people might think of it.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly who your audience is, Luis, but I'm sure there's a lot of content creators and stuff that probably watch your channel. And
Mm.
is that safe to assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of
So,
like the creator's creator, so to speak.
okay, cool. So I think we all get caught up in this rat race, this like um analytics and trying to go with the trends and get the clicks and do all the things that are happening, and the strategies that all the gurus tell you to do your thumbnails this way, to increase retention time, to all this stuff. I basically ignored all that for my whole time on YouTube. I understand how a lot of it works. I'm a very analytical person with my background in like math and engineering. I understand it all. I just kind of threw it out, and because it can drive you crazy. And so the only
Yes.
real lens that I've looked through for now 5 years on YouTube is all the decisions that I make are based on providing value for my audience. And when I tune all of that rest of the stuff out and I just focus on that, it kind of just simplifies everything. It's like, how do I
Yes.
provide value? And back to what we were talking before with simplicity. You watch my videos. I don't look like even my office here, you call it my set. It's very simple. I'm just here to help people. I don't have fancy edits. I'm not doing jump cuts and all that stuff that is supposed to be for retention. But the people that come to my channel, they're like, wow, there's a lot of information here and it's helpful for them and educational. And value doesn't have to just mean educational and informative stuff. It could be entertainment, right? Like entertainment is also value. So, but
Mm.
whatever it is, like you want people to come and be like, I want to watch another one of this guy's videos, or next time I need help with this, I'm going to watch this guy's video because I trust him or he's got good information. And I've sort of tuned the rest of that out. And if you look at my thumbnails, for example, they're just the same thumbnail for every video, right? It's just a picture of the item that I'm reviewing. And it's funny because you watch all the trends on YouTube where it's like the shocked face or the arrows or the, like all that stuff that you've seen over the last few years. I don't even know what it is now. I don't really care. I was just thinking, man, my thumbnail is going to stand out against all that other stuff because I'd be like, why is that just like a camera on a desk? Like that looks different than. If you look on YouTube, you'll see. I'm not saying my strategy is the right strategy. That's just kind of how I've approached it, and it's just like gotten rid of all that extra stuff that people are like just constantly thinking about. I don't stress about that stuff. Sorry, I was a
Yeah,
little
but
bit
that's
changing the topic,
branding.
but it is branding. Yeah, yeah,
It is branding. It's like we all know a Gerald Undone thumbnail. That's
yep,
like we see the item, we see the background, the purple glow, and it's already
yep.
automatic. And my thumbnails are the ones with the face in it because that's kind of what I started doing, and that's also what's recognized. When I've taken my face away from it, it doesn't do as well. So I said, "Hey, it doesn't bother me," but in the same ilk, so to speak. Like I've simplified it where it's the same exact expression and the same, like, hey, look at this. And it's mostly for my live stream to just basically say, this is what I'm talking about this week, or so on and so forth. But
I do think a lot about the branding though, Luis, because like you said, it is part of the whole branding. Like when you see, like you were mentioning Gerald's thumbnails or my thumbnail, when you click on it and you watch it, it's very representative of the kind of video that you're going to get from me, right? I have a very simple thing I'm delivering here. There's no nonsense. That's kind of what the thumbnail represents. You kind of know
mhm.
what you're getting into before you click on it. So yeah, I put a lot of thought into that over time. It was
Yeah.
interesting, like setting up this space here. People are like, I like how it's not like crazy and YouTubey. Like you don't have, I'm not making fun of anyone else. This is part of my branding. What
Mhm.
I want to put out is that like, I don't have RGB lights. I don't have all the, like things in the background. This is just my office. This is where I hang out. Like it's very chill in here. It's very comfortable. So I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into all this, and it's important to think
But
about.
yeah, it is important to think about because you can't like over like I guess texturize or like put too much information on a thumbnail, right? To make it seem like it's a Mr. Beast video. And then when they click into it, they get a chill, lo-fi vibe. You understand? It's like they'd be like, that doesn't correlate. So it does, like, it's part of the branding that it kind of has to go together, kind of has to match.
I agree completely.
But I have to agree with you. I'm also someone, I don't talk about it much, but I have not paid a lot of attention to analytics, even though I'm like kind of a numbers guy. And what that has done for me, at least, is that it's allowed the surprise factor to actually happen naturally, right? Because what I've noticed is that when I'm over here looking at the milestones, waiting for them, it's almost like a race where you're trying to get to that finish line. Yet I've kind of put that to its side and just focused on what makes it fun for me and highlight in those aspects. And then whenever I go check the YouTube studio, it's got all these notifications to give me like, hey, you've had this many views or you've reached this many subscribers. And then it's an actual like cherry on top for me. It's like, oh, that's great. That's showing progression, yet I'm not wasting energy on the negative side of like hyper fixating on trying to get those metrics.
Well, you're a better person than me because I am definitely in my analytics a lot. And there's a lot of psychology that happens with the YouTube Studio app, which you hear creators talking about, like the 1 of 10, the 3 of 10s, like that stuff really does affect how we feel, and it sucks. And because you'll put out a video that you're like, I really like this video. I think it's got a lot of value. I really enjoyed making it. I think it's creatively good. Like all the things, you put a lot of time and energy, and then you put out, it's like, 9 to 10. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
what?
My favorite videos are not the highest played videos, but
Right.
they're my own personal favorites for a myriad of different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't use those all the time to dictate what I do in terms of how I edit or the styles of videos. I know most of the time how well the video is going to do before I post it. 9 out of 10 times I get it right. I don't know if you find that to be true. Oh, you're not even looking, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you have to
Absolutely.
also, have you heard the thing like you need to have the memory of a goldfish if you want to be on YouTube? Have you heard that
Yes,
before?
that's the thing. That's the
Yeah.
thing that I try to emphasize more on, which is I try to not hyperfixate on it so that it doesn't affect me. And it's not that I recognize that it doesn't affect me, but because I do is why I have to kind of put it in its place so that I can continue to, I guess, enjoy what it is that I'm doing. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like we're the luckiest individuals in the world where we get to somehow monetize this passion that we have for photography, videography. And in your case, pretty much whatever you decide to put your mind on, whether it's farming, microbrewing, anything like that, you've been able to pursue your passion. And that's where I would kind of have to regress and say, you've been a creative your entire life. You may not have been what you would consider yourself an artist, right? But a creative nonetheless, because what I realize is that as a creative myself, we we automatically fall into this systematic or SOP, right? Standard operating
Right.
procedures,
Procedure.
which
Yep.
is whatever it is that we're doing, we're going to find the most efficient and easiest way to do it for ourselves. And it didn't matter what it was. I did it when I used to be a bartender, right? I would go in and rechange the entire thing. I'm like, this is more efficient here. This is juice here. This is like this. So why would we? And then the companies that I work for will be like, well, we can't have any of that because we need to have it uniform to the way that it looks everywhere else. And it'll be like, that doesn't make sense yet. That's where I realized that we've always been creatives no matter where we went. We weren't being utilized correctly in our previous employments.
That's a great way to put it, Luis. And thanks for like bringing that up. Because I mentioned earlier, I was like, I didn't feel like very creative as a kid. And to me, creativity was like painting, drawing, acting. Like I played a little bit of music in my younger years, but I was never great at it. Like I had fun. I enjoy music and that sort of stuff. But I never felt, and then I went to engineering, and it was like, to me, that was like the anti-creative, right? That
Mhm.
was like nuts and bolts, like you follow the rules, you do the thing. And you're right. And I think even when I was into with brewing, it was a lot of SOP thinking. It was like I walked into it was a brewery that I got hired at, pretty big size, brewery in my space, and I walked in and I cut down the brew days like by 30 to 40%, which just like be like, hey guys, let's really think about what we're doing here. And they weren't very receptive to it at first. And then we did it. It basically eliminated like a half a position a week, essentially. Like we could work on other things. And yeah, that does take some creativity. And that's how my brain operates. Like I was saying about efficiencies with doing all this kind of stuff too. But the creative part, I never really felt that until I got into video. I think that's kind of where I don't feel like I'm a full artist in that world because I'm very on the technical side. And I also like don't love photography. I just really like video, which is very weird. And like people ask me about that all the time too. But yeah, it's really cool. I've always loved movies. I hate reading. I would always prefer to watch a movie than read a book. If you see me reading a book, I really need the information in that book. Like it's really a challenge for me. And my wife is a huge reader. And so she's always like, I don't understand. And I'm like, I will watch a movie and be totally engrossed in the movie with no distractions, but I cannot sit down and read a book. It's really hard for me. So I've always loved movies. And even before I got into filmmaking, or I don't call myself a filmmaker, into videography, it's been fascinating to me to watch the cinematography, even before I knew what was going on. And now it's like a whole different world when I watch movies. But I still love watching movies and film and shows and stuff like that. So to be able to create some of that is just so cool. Like and the tools we have are just like, they blow my mind like daily.
That's a whole nother podcast conversation right there
Yeah,
when
yeah,
it comes
yeah.
to tools, because I think that was another thing that really allowed me to like expand on this creative space, was when I realized the differences of editing today with today's technology compared to the edits that I used to do back in VHS, super VHS days and things like that. Like when I was in school, it's totally night and day.
So
That's
I didn't live in that era. I was alive, but I wasn't into video in that time period. So I got into it at a point where I started my YouTube channel, like I said, editing on my phone. You know what I mean? And so
yeah.
what I've had in the tools that we have in terms of the computers that we have nowadays, the cameras, just the speed of the internet, it's just mind blowing. Sometimes I make stuff and I'm like, wow, like it just looks, I'm like, wow, that's crazy that we're able to create the kind of images that we can create. And I'm just so fascinated by all the tech, like we were talking about before.
Well, that leads me to this question, I guess. What was the piece of tech, right, as a child that you loved the most? Maybe, I guess, your favorite toy, something like that, or a piece of tech that was your absolute go to as a child.
I was into a lot of stuff, and I think that part of that was my father was very much into computers when I was younger, and this was like, I was born in 1980, so when I was a kid, computers weren't really a thing, right? They were just getting
Mm-hmm.
started, and my dad was like buying parts and building PCs. Like this is before people had like home computers and stuff. So I was around a lot of the stuff growing up, and I'm very lucky to have grown up in that environment. So we always had computers and things like that. I also got into ham radio when I was a kid, amateur radio. And so that was
Ooh.
like a whole nother nerdy world that I'm not part of anymore. But like that tech was so, I mean, this is pre-internet stuff. And like, you could
Yeah.
get on your radio and call someone like across the country or across the world, or have a portable radio before we had cell phones. So there was a lot of that stuff. And I still don't take any of the things that we have for granted, because I'm still amazed at the phones that we have in our pockets and our computers. And I feel very lucky. And I have two 13-year-old boys. My wife and we have twin boys, and I talk to them all the time. And I'm like, I try to explain to them, like, and I feel like such an old person doing this, but I'm like, we didn't have any of this stuff before. And I remember, this is back to what you were saying before about watching a show. And if you like missed, you went to the bathroom or whatever, and you missed a couple minutes, like you just missed it, right? I remember having this conversation with my parents when I was a kid, when we had VHS, right? We could record a show from TV and watch it later. And I feel like we'd always set up the timers and it would never work right and stuff, Luis. I'm guessing you're around the same age I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
81. 81. We're right there.
All right. So I remember talking to my parents, and I said, well, what did you guys do like when you didn't have a VCR to record the show? And they just said, we missed it. And I was like, and like I think the same thing.
People don't have the comprehension. Like, we used to miss phone calls that were important.
Yes, you had to be
like
home.
Completely miss them. I love it.
So I don't take this stuff for granted, and a lot of times I do take a step back and I'm just like realize how lucky we are to have the technology that we have, and the ability to, like you said, use our passions to create income, to create content, to help people. Like I don't know, I don't take any of that stuff for granted. I think it's super special.
Yeah, it doesn't get lost on you. Like me,
I try not to.
I think we were born in an amazing era where we got to see like the technology evolve to where it's at today. Because me being born in Puerto Rico, the country, or the provenance, however you want to call it, being a little outdated, right? Sort of backtrack.
Sure.
I was born with rotary phones.
I remember rotary phones too. So yeah.
And that's the whole thing. And to come to the point now where I can just talk to a square little brick right over here, call it a particular name, and have it call the individual that I want to speak to, not even the household. Because when phones came about, like, people always say like, oh, I remember that I used to know everybody's phone number back in the day. And I was like, yeah and no, because you would know a phone number, but it would be to the house.
Sure.
And somebody else would pick up and be like, hey, is Tommy there? And that's how you would get in communication, because I remember my childhood friend's number that I used to call all the time, but it was to his house. Yep. Now everybody is just a contact name on your iPhone. And it's like impossible to remember so many phone numbers, let alone their names.
Yeah, I feel very lucky to have grown up in the analog age and to have experienced the transition, because it puts a lot of things in perspective. And just to circle back to like camera gear and stuff, because I know that's something we both have in common with each other, and a lot of stuff that we like to talk about. I think people get caught up in, especially with the new releases that just happened this week, and people are like getting worked up about all the stuff. And I'm like, it is just mind blowing what these cameras have in them. And of course, we're going to get nerdy and nitpick about them, but I don't know. I try to keep things in perspective as much as I can, Luis.
Yeah, me too, because I always go back to, we used to use film. Like, we used to like take a photo and not know if it was good or not, depending on how long it took you to develop. It could be weeks at a time before you even knew if what you were doing was any good or not. So yeah, I always try to keep that into perspective, about how far the technology has come. And I'm just blown away with what we can do now by ourselves comparative to what we used to need a team to do.
Yeah, I definitely did a lot of film photography when I was younger. I wouldn't say a lot. I'd say probably a little bit more than most people, but I wasn't like great at it, And I mean, because there wasn't an option. Like, if you want to take a photo, you had to have a camera with film in it. That there was no other option. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I went to Europe for a summer and traveled around and backpacked, and I came home with I don't know how many rolls of film, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go bring them to CVS and see what the photos looked like. They could have none of them could have come out. Like, I would have no idea. So Yeah, and I think that I've also owned a few digital cameras over the years, but yeah, I wasn't like really into photography at all. It was just kind of like, something that was cool back in the day.
I I got more into it with the digital side when the expense came a lot down,
Yes.
so to speak, when it becomes penny on the dollar. And that really excelled my growth with the photography, because before it was more journalistic aspect where it was like I was documenting things and making sure that I wanted to keep certain memories,
Hmm.
but it was just straight, film to print, and there was really no Photoshop involved. Now, every image that I take is gonna be touched or dabbled a little bit, even if it is the simple little, like, kind of enhanced editor on my phone.
Yeah, I think about that a lot with film too. I was watching. I try to fairly often watch like older movies, not like old movies, but even just movies from like our childhood or even like 10 or 15 years ago that maybe were not shot digitally. And
Yeah,
I watched something recently. What was I watching? I was watching Kill Bill recently, which I've seen before, and I'm just thinking
nice.
like, man, they did this with like I was watching. I'm like, oh, the color grading is great. I was like, no, it was shot on film. Like they can do some work with the negatives and stuff, but yeah, it just puts things in perspective when you go back and look at some of these like older movies. Everything's done practically. Like you watch the old
Yep.
Star Wars movies, for example, and stuff like that, and you're like, wow, like it's crazy. So I don't know.
Yeah, but that's why they emphasized on the term lights, camera, action, because lights were the most important thing and they were put in that order accordingly. Lights, then camera, then roll speed. But
There you
now,
go.
to the next question, right, which kind of falls into the same thing. What is the piece of gear or tech that has your like most attention today? Doesn't
It
necessarily need to be a camera, just like what is the piece of tech or something that's just making your life a little bit easier? What has the most of your attention when it comes to technology today?
Those are kind of two different questions. I think the thing that makes my life the easiest every day is my computer.
Okay.
The computers have like, and I just bought a new computer this week, so that's like first on my mind right now. Uh, the new Macs that have been come out in the last few years, like the M1, M2, M3, it's just like unbelievable how they've increased our efficiency, workflow, uh, especially for the price, and our output quality is better. And that has been just absolutely amazing to me. In the like the rest of my world, in terms of the tech, I am constantly rotating cameras. And like I said earlier, like I obviously own a few cameras, but I'm constantly getting to borrow cameras and test them and stuff like that. So I'm always like amazed and enthused about it. And people say, "Aren't you just bored of this? Like, aren't the cameras at peak camera?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're kind of getting to a point where like everything's just amazing, but I still find things that I get really interested in. It's just a lot of fun." And now it's like I've been investing more in lenses lately, so I'm looking to take a deeper dive into some different optics and things like that moving forwards. But I kind of move in different ways and do different things. I also love doing wildlife videography, which I don't get nearly enough time to do. And so hopefully I will put more time into that over, the next couple of years. It's just hard. Like right now, are you in Florida? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you know how it is in the summertime. You can't do much during the. I'm in North Carolina. It's you guys are warmer, but
Exactly.
it's we're
Yeah, we
above
will
that point
melt.
where yeah we just melt. So yeah, I try to do a lot of different kinds of things. I don't get much into the narrative space. I've done a couple of projects, but that's not really what interests me the most. So yeah, the piece of tech. I don't know. Like all these cameras, just they're so cool. I will get into one system for a while, learn everything. Like I was using Red cameras for the last year or so, and I moved on from that and playing with all my Black Magic cameras now, and like the new Canon cameras coming out, and there's just always something cool to play with. You know what I mean? But the computers have been yeah kind of blowing my mind lately. Again, like we said, not taken for granted what we have. You know.
Absolutely. Wait, hold on. Let me just do something here. There we go. My lights changed at noon. So,
Oh, okay.
like everything started turning off. I'm like, let me keep things rolling.
Yeah.
But yeah, now then I guess I would have to agree with you because I love nerding out on cameras and finding the nuances, right? The little differences, because they're pretty much all great right now. It's just figuring out these little nuances of how you use it. And one of them, just to throw it on there, was that I was messing with Canon R10. And I
Yeah.
recognized that I was using it upside down because sometimes people mount them upside down in cars to get different angles, and that the Canon actually was keeping the face in autofocus even while upside down, like the eye
Crazy.
tracking, which was pretty impressive, knowing that my Sonys don't do that, even though the Sonys have, to me, better eye tracking autofocus when they're right side up. So those little nuances and different things like that, knowing the differences in the cameras, is where I really have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I do a
Now,
lot of technical deep dive testing, as you've probably seen on my channel, and
I've
I'm
seen
sort
some.
of I'm learning into that. I'm leaning into that even more over the last bit of time, but also moving forwards because I really enjoy it. But I also always want to keep a little bit of that creative energy in there as well, in terms of like actually taking the cameras out to shoot, because I think that will give a more balanced review. But if you want to get into the minutia and the real nitty gritty details, like I'm down for that. Like I do a lot of that kind of stuff. It does get very repetitive, though, I have to say.
Mm-hmm. And that happens to me nerding out on my live streams on Saturday. Certain times I just fall into that rabbit hole and we get into the numbers, and next thing you know, it's just like a mind meld. But my last question here for the podcast is the question where I'm closing everything out. The name of the podcast is CITYSGAW, channels that I think you should go and watch. And you are now part of the alumni. My last question to you is, what is your CITYSGAW? What is a channel that maybe has your attention right now? Doesn't necessarily need to be particularly in this space, but a channel or a creator that you think we should all go and watch.
That's a really tough question, Luis. I've been probably watching less YouTube lately. Because I think that a lot of, I don't know if I'm going to give you an answer. This is not good. I do try to answer people's questions, but I find that like I've been watching the camera space for several years now, and the people that really got inspiration from and looked up to aren't really like creating that much content anymore. You know, like when I was getting into this, I was looking at like Casey, obviously, and Peter, and that whole world. This is like, 2018, 2017, 2018, 2019 was, in that time period. Now I'm generally going on YouTube, like looking for information. And a lot of times, like, I'm like, I got to go make that video. You know what I mean? And so I kind of been running into that situation where I was researching stuff and I'd be talking to a friend and I'm like, how come this doesn't exist online? Like, I want to know how this thing performs. And my buddy goes, Josh, because you're supposed to make that video. Like, that's your job to make that video. No one else is going to make that video.
Mhm.
So to me, a lot of the stuff I like to watch is watch a lot of my friends and colleagues that I chat with all
Mhm.
the time. And I like to see them creating and growing and stuff like that. So yeah, there isn't like one person I think I'd point to right now that I'm like, I can't get enough of that creator. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Well,
Sorry to
that's
give you
cool
an
to
answer,
know, but
Luis.
no, but I agree with you. Listen, I've said this plenty of times. It's really hard to be on stage and in the audience at the same time.
That's true.
So sometimes while we're creating the content, we really don't have all the time to highlight or to pay attention to what other creators are creating alongside.
Yeah, but it's also important to not get trapped in your own bubble, that you're still consuming and seeing what's going on and still looking for ideas and inspiration, because I think when you get in your own ways and you get set, you don't grow as an individual and as a creative. So it's important to find inspiration from other creators, from different things, if it's art, music, movies, if you want to read, like like I was saying before. But it's important to not just be set in your ways, because I find that when I sit down and watch a movie from some different director or DP, and I'm like, whoa, that's a shot I haven't seen before, that is fascinating, in different movies and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I don't know if I could point you to like one creator that I'm like, I can't get enough of that guy, you know what I mean, or that woman, like I said, I've been watching a little bit less YouTube lately.
It makes sense. But another thing is that you also have your own podcast called 16 Stops. So that is
Yeah, so
You
that
gonna
got put
say?
on hold. Yeah, we did like almost 20 episodes, Brandon and and I loved it. It was so much fun, and we keep talking about getting it started, and I think we might be about to do that again. So, but
Cool.
it's been on hold for probably, has it been a year? I don't even know. It's been a long time.
I don't think it's been that long. 'Cause I remember.
I never,
I think you guys made something this calendar year.
maybe, I don't know. I always
I
feel like
think it was towards the beginning.
I feel like that's the case, and then you're like, oh, it's been a year. Like I feel like that stuff
I
happens
have
all the
to
time.
agree with you. So I might be completely wrong because to me, I'll be like, that just happened last week. And I'll be like, that was a month ago.
Yeah,
Wow. So, yeah,
yeah,
like I've been messing around with the Canon R10. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna create a content within like 4 weeks, and I've had the camera ready for 6 weeks, and it's been so much stuff. And I'm like, I haven't made one thing about it. I've used it, I've messed around with it, but I haven't actually made anything about it. I'm like, wow, it's
yeah.
already been
But
6 weeks.
yeah, but I think we're gonna try again to get it started and be realistic about our output and stuff. Brandon and we've been talking a lot, and he's definitely getting motivated again. Both of us got our lives got pretty crazy for a little while, especially Brandon had a lot going on. But I'm a huge fan of long form content, and I know I always feel like it's like a pendulum with all these different things that we're talking about, where we'll push towards short form. We'll come back to the middle where it's going to be a balance. I don't like short form at all. I don't consume it. I don't like to make it. That's just me. Like I know that. I've always liked long form. I like discussions. I've done a lot of podcasting in the past, even in the farming space. I was working with another farming group and a YouTube, content creator group that we're developing, and they've been very successful. I haven't done any work with them in a while, but I was doing these kind of things with farmers I never met before. We did them live, and I was doing them every 2 weeks. So I got to interview like a ton of people. I've always sort of wanted to do more long form because I find that in a lot of the things that we're consuming on a daily basis, there's not much depth to it, right? You're like, you get a little bit of information, but when you watch or listen to a long discussion or a long, someone presenting something for a long period of time, you get more into it, you get more information. And I also felt like that as a teacher, especially in the United States. I taught high school math for 5 years. And so I felt that I had this moment, this is going off topic, but I had this moment, Luis, that I was teaching 3 different classes and I was teaching the same topic to 3 different grade levels. And I sat there and I go, wait a minute, why am I teaching the same thing that I taught 3 years in a row, essentially? There's just not much depth. And so we don't like get a deeper understanding of these things. And that's like a whole other discussion about education and stuff. And now watching my kids go through and everything. But I think the depth is
Yeah.
important. And I do like that. And that's where I wanted to do the podcast with Brandon. And, when you were like, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get more into it. And I've been experimenting more on my channel with where I don't really do a lot. I just kind of talk to the camera for 10 or 20 minutes. And those videos I find do really well too, but people want to hear your opinion about something, right? Because I feel like a lot of times people don't want to put their opinion out because they may ruin a relationship with a company that might not send them the thing, or, and so I've been experimenting with that. And even this week, I put out a video about the Canon R5 II release. It was 22 minutes long, and I literally had no B-roll. I just talked to the camera for 20 minutes. And people got the average view duration was up. I got good comments and good interaction. So I do really like long form a lot. It's great for, when you're cooking or driving or I have to mow the grass. It takes me over an hour. I put on my earmuffs and listen to a podcast, stuff like that. I love it because you get really deep into things. And I think that's missing in a lot of the content we're consuming nowadays. So
Yep.
long response to my podcast, your podcast question.
No, but that's actually like what I enjoy about podcasting, the long form content. You're able to enjoy it in different ways. Like you said, cutting the grass means like washing the dishes, where I'm able to just put it in the background and hear that conversation go. And it's almost like a negative when it's too short. You understand? Because I'm like, oh, I have so many more dishes. You understand? Or I have so much more lawn to cut. And now I have to stop what I'm doing and dry my hands to figure out what I'm going to put on next. So, but, I guess as a spinoff, I would say that the 16 stops and the upcoming new episodes with Mr. Talbot to be this versions of CITYSGAW from you, so to
Oh,
speak.
perfect. I can promote myself.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's
Yeah,
what it is. You're promoting yourself and a co-creator, because that's what I feel that we all are, right? A lot of people, or a lot of these applications that help you with your YouTube channel will consider other creators competition, where I see them all as co-workers or co-creators in the same space. And it's just one way or another, like different, like they say, ships passing in the night, where we're all just creating our own thing, and you'd be surprised what you can find on this amazing platform.
absolutely. I've been actually referring to other YouTubers as colleagues lately. I don't know if other people feel that way, but actually using that term, like I say, oh, my friends and colleagues, because we are kind of working on this together. And
Hmm?
there's a lot of people out there that really live that sort of scarcity mindset. And I don't know if you've heard like the abundance versus scarcity
Hmm.
discussion.
Yeah.
I came into this before with farming, where the abundance mindset was like you just give and you give. You don't think about what you're getting back. Some people call it karma, whatever. But there's also the like scarcity mindset where you're worried about income and stuff, and so you make their decisions based on that. But I think the scarcity mindset that I think of more often is like the I'm not going to share my secrets because that guy might use my stuff to then outcompete me, right? I've never felt that way. I really try to live that abundance mindset, and it was important for me to connect with other creators. And when I went to, I was talking about NAB before. When I went, like a good part of it was like me trying to meet with brands and make those connections for getting loaners, getting review units, like being part of projects, stuff like that. But then a good chunk of it was like hanging out with creators. And there are so many discussions, as you know, that happen behind the scenes where we are really helping each other out. If it's like a connection with a company or a brand, if it's like, hey, how did you do this? Or how did you set this thing up? Or is this working for you? Or can you help me with this? That is invaluable. And I think we need to really embrace that as a community of YouTube creators. So I completely agree with you, Luis, about that.
Dude, well, I concur 100%, because the hallway conversations that you have at these events it's where the magic happens, so to speak. And I have
Absolutely.
to also tell you that I was upset at myself because I was really trying to make NAB, and seeing photos of you with Doc and so many awesome creators, Matthew, the Dylans,
Yeah.
and everyone that I'm gonna eventually end up having here on the podcast. It was really cool to see you guys all like come partake and hang out together. And once again, like I said, having those magical conversations in the hallways, which is what makes all the difference in these events, at least to me.
Yeah, I love those guys. It was really cool last year at NAB to actually meet some of them for the first time. You talk to them a lot, and you interact with them. You may hop on a phone call every once in a while, but then you hang out in person. It's just like I didn't want those times to end. You're just like, oh man, this is so cool to be able to hang out.
Right?
And I know a lot of us also feel. I don't know about you, Luis, but sometimes I feel kind of isolated in what we do because I don't know anyone locally that does what I do. So you can't like get together and like grab lunch or get a coffee and like just shoot the crap and just, talk about things and swap battle stories and help each other out and help film each other and all those things. And I'm really jealous when I see people that have a lot of local friends that they can do that with. So those opportunities are special that you can get together with other creators and just hang out and get, spend that time together because there's not that many people that do this in reality.
Exactly. And when you find your group of people that are doing it in the same field that you're doing it, it makes it that much more. I just feel. But I do agree. But I also think that's why I kind of am doing this as a podcast, because I'm leveraging the relationship that I've been able to foster online, whether it's through the communities that we're establishing and building on these live stream and online platforms. And now it's going to be that much easier, so that when I actually get to meet you in person, it's going to be that much easier to just fall back to the bar and have that beer that we talked about.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Looking forward to that.
Well, I have to thank you for making the time. We're just a little bit past the hour. And I have to really thank you again for carving out this time to spend here with me and hang out with my community.
You're welcome. And thanks for the invitation. It's always cool to be able to chat with fellow creators and, tell my story or discuss things and share that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you too.
All right, man. Well, thanks again. And this is where we're going to leave it. This week's CITYSGAW, none other than Josh Sattin. So take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you next time. Talk to you.